Welcome to the very first episode of Motor Mouth, a new monthly program on Pottstown Community Television. And it's brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra Cook.
I'm Dan Olson.
And we're your hosts. And we hope that you at home recognize us. For a long time, well, Dan's been on there much longer than I have.
Right.
We've been hosting Wheels Along the Road, which was also a Boyertown Museum program. And even though we filmed it at Berks County Television, and PCTV was nice enough to replay it for us, well, we're not going to re-air that anymore. This is a new program. It's going to take over the Wheels time slot, and it's going to be all new programming. And one of the neatest things about it is we're going to be filming right here on site at the Boyertown Museum.
That's like an exclusive for you Pottstown TV viewers.
Yeah, our Berks County viewers won't be able to enjoy that part because we're stuck in a studio, which is nice too. But this is going to give us, I think a better look at what's here at the museum and some behind the scenes or backstage passes, if you want to call it that. More in-depth looks at some of the stuff here, and maybe some special events too.
Right. And if you noticed, a month ago we had a show also from the museum's car show, Duryea Day, that's held about half mile from here, and interviewed a bunch of people with their cars and such, and that was a great day. Tiring, but great. And that kind of got Kendra and I used to walking around talking to a TV camera.
Yeah, and actually, that was our best Duryea Day ever. We had over 600 cars, close to 700. And, we had a great time filming it, and that was our unofficial first episode, maybe, of this program.
Unofficial.
But, yeah, now we're here, and
this is the first official.
That is correct. So now we're here. This is our first one in the museum.
Okay.
So, I guess maybe what can you expect to see? Like I said, you're going to get an in-depth look here. So you have to catch us every month and see where we end up in the museum next.
And we have a lot of really, really unique vehicles, and I look at our vehicles, I measure everything against the Hershey Car Show. What kind of reaction would I have at Hershey Car Show, which is coming up real soon? And I think almost every one of the vehicles in our museum would turn heads at Hershey. So we have a lot of unique things. We'll be getting in depth with them, as Kendra said. But we're also a vehicle museum. So we have bicycles, we have horse-drawn carriages and sleighs and all sorts of stuff. We even have a diner and a gas station in our place.
Yeah, and you might be able to catch some glimpses of that. We're sitting actually in front of our gas station and diner. And I think what's neat about having all the vehicles, not just motorized, and I think this is something we might be pointing out later, is you can really see changes and things that worked in the horse-drawn era that were adapted for use in the motorized.
And how they experimented with cars also, because they didn't know, do you need a windshield? That was a strange device back then.
And I like to tell tours, when they're here. Back in 1910, they didn't have regulations like we do now. They didn't have safety standards they had to meet. They didn't have to meet environmental standards, and the traffic laws. We didn't really have traffic laws, at all like we do now. And so all this stuff, if you could think it and imagine it, you were free to build it pretty much.
Right.
So I think that is neat for me to see, is that age of experimentation that was going on.
So Kendra, why a museum? Why do we have this facility? Why are we excited about having this and showing it to other people?
I think just educating and seeing where we came from, what did and didn't work.
Right.
And, it's important to remember the successes. We always talk about the Model T for good reason. It was a successful car. We've got a Model T here, a couple in certain versions. But but the failures are important too.
Absolutely.
You know, why don't we drive Duryers anymore?
Right.
You know, what was he doing that was wrong, for lack of a
Right.
better term? So you can learn all about that here. And you can learn so much local history too. You know, I'm sure almost everyone at home is going to recognize a lot of the towns and stuff that we talk about.
Right.
And so much of the car industry was going on right here in Pennsylvania.
Correct.
And we are, for the most part, almost everything here was built in Pennsylvania.
Right.
For the most part, we have a local focus. We have a couple exceptions here and there. Sometimes when we can't find a good Pennsylvania example of what we want to teach about. But we're here, we're a resource
Okay.
for information.
Now, you're, as a curator, you do a lot of tours. I do a lot of tours too as a volunteer. And it's great trying to adapt our talk to the people, to their different age groups or what they would be interested in. And that's a challenge. I have Tiger Scouts come in once in a while, and they can be a handful. But how do you tell them, or how would I tell them about, you know, our exhibit? They're a bunch of 6-year-olds. You know, when I was 6-year-olds, I could care less about this kind of stuff. And then on the flip side, I know this coming Saturday, we got a group from, I think, Jersey somewhere, and they're a Mustang club. So obviously, you know, it's a whole different tour, but so.
Yeah, we got a lot of, and you know, we can also bring up why we're sitting at this nicely decorated table.
Yes.
Another reason we're here.
I thought it was because they feed the TV people.
Well,
No?
unfortunately, everything looks pretty empty.
Yeah.
There's no plate here either.
So what are they doing with these tables?
Well, you know, we want to be a community resource too, and you know, we're here for the community. We want the community to be involved, and everyone at home, you know, we are open for events and special parties, meetings, dinners, and in fact, what's going on here tomorrow, the day after we're filming, in the morning they're having a breakfast meeting, and it's for a local group that, you know, has given out grant monies to different nonprofits and such in the area, and they're being thanked. So, you know, we have a
Kind of
great,
promoting the community, sort of,
Exactly.
and helping the community.
exactly. You know, we want to be involved in the community, and you know, we want people to take an interest here and just be a part. But yeah, this is why we're so nicely set up this evening. Tables aren't always here when
No,
you come
no,
to
they
visit.
aren't. Sometimes there'll be a vehicle sitting over here instead.
Yeah, but it's a great venue to have
Yeah.
something like this. You get to sit in front of these really neat buildings that we have here, which I'm sure we'll be looking at,
Oh, yes.
if not tonight, in later months. So it's a great atmosphere.
Okay.
So we talked about evolution of pieces. Should we take a little walk around and
We
look
could
at some
do
of
that.
those things?
We could do
All right,
that.
well, we're going to take a little walk around the gallery, so we hope you stay and join us.
All right. Okay, we're going to tell you a little bit about our museum and the facility which the museum is housed in. And the history of this building and the factory we're in goes back quite a ways. And Kendra, why don't you tell the viewers something about Boyertown here?
Yeah, sure. Well, you know, really, the history of this site goes back to 1872. And that's when the Jeremiah Swinehart Carriage Factory began. Now, the area that we're standing in right now, where if you came to the museum and you'd walk into our gallery, is adjacent to that building. We do still have the Carriage Factory building. It's on the other side of one of our gallery walls, and it's currently under restoration. But that's really where the vehicle production started here in Boyertown. And they made not just carriages, like their name would imply, they made sleighs and they made wagons, you know, smaller farm kind of, or creamery wagons they used to call them, and did repairs as well.
Okay.
And that lasted in some incarnation until about 1926. It changed names a couple times and owners and things like that. But until 1926, they were building carriages here. And it got to be a bigger business that they did need to expand, and they built basically where you and I are standing right now.
Right.
They did expand onto this spot. And in 1926, they switched over to truck bodies,
Right.
and that went on until 1990.
Okay, and that was full-time truck bodies. And I understand that the truck bodies were, the first one was 1914?
Yeah, it
Okay.
actually predates the truck company, yes.
Right. And the thing is, we have the original box that was made for a motorized vehicle. I kind of hesitated there because I don't believe it's on the original vehicle. Am I correct?
Yeah, we're not sure about that.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to be.
But it is a box from 1914, so we're talking about a 100-year-old box. That sounds silly, doesn't it?
It does sound silly, but you know, it's really an important piece because, you know, so many car companies in those early days started out as carriage builders, bicycle builders,
Right.
machinists, and they basically they saw the writing on the wall
Right.
and that the motorized age was coming, and they tried to branch into car building, and a lot of them failed pretty miserably, or they didn't last very long, a few years, 10 years tops. This
Okay.
place was here till 1990, which is
Right.
pretty amazing.
And so during that transition, of course, as Kendra said, they started building trucks, and they went full-time with trucks in 26, you said? 1926, up till 1990. And to our right, to the viewer's left, we have a whole row of trucks that were built right here in Boyertown. And the first one's a Model T, and that box on the back is that 100-year-old box that we mentioned. And that was used, that was local delivery used that, local businesses. I believe it was a cigar business originally that used that.
It was, I believe it was Herb Cigars, which was right here in Boyertown.
Yep. I think it was like about 2 blocks from here, 3 blocks.
Yeah, to my understanding, yes.
And the next vehicle is a 1936 Ford that was used for door-to-door meat delivery. That's a butcher truck. You look inside, there's a butcher block and the whole deal, has a refrigerated rear end to it. That's again a 1936 Ford. The next one in line is an international truck built for the Marines during World War II, and that's an ambulance that had the back end was a Boyertown body. It's 4-wheel drive, so it could be driven to the front lines of a battlefield to get the wounded. The one after that is a U.S. mail truck from 1950, and as you can see, you know, we're progressing through the years here, but things are getting technologically advanced. I don't know if we could use the word advanced for 1950, but you know what I mean. And that was used for mail delivery. The one beyond that, you can see, I don't know if you can pick it up, it has a light blue roof on it. That was also a butcher truck from 1950, and I mentioned this beige one that's right close to us is 1936, and you can see a difference in those 14 years. And the one all the way at the end is an ice cream truck from 1958, and this place made hundreds of trucks like that, ice cream trucks that would go up and down your neighborhood streets and annoy your parents with the bells and the music and the jingles and all that stuff, but to a kid that was some great stuff. And so that's what they ended up building here. A lot of these were built right here, probably in this, right where we're standing.
Yeah. And that's such a neat feature, I think, of our museum, and maybe something we need to tell our, you know, impress upon our visitors more, is not only do we have this collection of really great vehicles, we also have a building in which a lot of them were actually built. So you're really, you're walking in the footsteps of the people that put these together, which is...
And as you view this program, you look in the background and things might not look real pristine and stuff. There's a lot of old factory type stuff here. The beams, the columns, we have air lines for pressurized air. They're not used anymore, of course, but they're all over the place. You got a real high ceiling. It's a factory building here. And so.
Well, in the building itself, now we talked about how, you know, when the carriage factory had expanded enough that they built this wood 3-story building on this spot. And, you know, that's not going to work when you're starting to build these heavy duty truck bodies.
Right.
You need a better building. Now, the building actually in here now, to my understanding, dates to about World War II, which is
Right.
our ambulance. And, you know, well, how did they build a new building with steel, which was being rationed at the time? You know, so
Good
basically, this is a repurposed building. It was brought here, I think from Pottstown, actually.
Okay.
I believe it was Pollock Steel.
See, now that I didn't even know.
Yeah,
I just learned something.
And so really we're in a repurposed building, but it's still standing today. And you know, a lot of these buildings, and I mean factory buildings in general from this era, they're not around anymore.
Right.
Or they're abandoned, empty, vacant, you know, or they got burned down or they were razed, destroyed. So we're really, you know, it's not the most beautiful building, but I think we are lucky to have it.
Right.
It's a piece of the story here.
Right.
An important piece.
Okay, we are sitting here, Kendra and I, we are sitting here in our 1907 Dragon. And we wanted to show this to you because obviously you can come to the museum and see this, but we also wanted to explain some of the other ways that somebody interested in old vehicles can learn about them, and the museum is only one of them. You know, obviously we have all these cars here. We have, I don't know, 70 cars and trucks
Probably
and carriages,
on display, yeah, about 70.
bicycles, okay,
Yeah.
all of them. And so we have a lot of ways for you to learn about them. And Kendra, why don't you tell the viewers, like our library, for instance. We do have that where they can learn things.
We do, we do have a library, and it's kind of an appointment-only library, or, you know, you drop us a line and someone here tries to help
Right.
you. It's probably me or Dan, honestly. And gosh, we have, you know, just a lot of automotive books on, it's not just local stuff, you know, even though our museum is for the most part locally built things, the library isn't necessarily that. We've got books on Ford and Cadillac and all those types of things. We also have a lot of archival stuff, for lack of a better word.
Right.
You know, it's funny, I often say it doesn't seem like the people, when this was the Boyertown Auto Body Works, it doesn't seem like they threw anything out. That doesn't mean it was well organized.
Remember that basement full of stuff?
Yeah, Dan and I cleaned out a bad basement full of blueprints, invoices. I mean, it was just a mountain of basement.
Now,
full
she
of
mentions blueprints, and we have a lot of the original drawings of the Boyertown built bodies here. And we also have photographs, I think, every truck that was built here, which was thousands. And we have thousands of pounds, thousands of nice 8 by 10 black and white glossy pictures of all the Boyertown trucks. So if any viewers out there need information, you just contact us. And,
interiors,
yep,
exteriors, front views. It's
everything.
It's daunting. Now, again, it might take us a long time to get through them because they're not all organized. But I know, I wonder if they would have not developed all those photos, could they have stayed in business a little longer? There's a lot of money on the
Right.
on the photo developing. But now I do know, it seems though that if, you know, if you have a family member or you yourself had a Boyertown truck or a friend, or just are, you know, reminiscing about a business that had a Boyertown truck, I think we have found that if, you know, if the truck was lettered here, it's probably here, the photo. But it
Right.
seems as though if someone bought their truck off the Ford lot, the generic model, and had it lettered themselves, well, we're probably not going to be able to find the
Right.
photograph. Because they did sell generic models on.
But we could,
Dealer
we could
lots.
find a photo of an unpainted truck.
Exactly, or a
So-
business that had one very similar
Right.
to it. But yeah, because I know my grandfather had a business here in Boyertown, and he had a Boyertown truck, and I know we've tried to find it, and he must have bought it off a lot because we can't find the business name now.
So anyway, about finding information, and Kendra and I talk about this occasionally, is about the sources of information. If you're a car person, especially, and I think also if you like carriages or bicycles or motorcycles, whatever, there's also the same sources. And you know, we have our library that we just talked about and our archive stuff that we have, or you can come and look at these vehicles. There's a lot of neat car shows. And I tried to do some investigation in the past week. I heard rumors that Pennsylvania was second to California as far as having collector car interest in the country. And, you know, and I kind of did some questioning and I didn't come up with any answers, but there is a lot of quality car shows, and you can go to car shows and you can poke around and you ask the owners. Every one of them will be happy to, no, not every one of them, most of them will be happy to tell you about their car. But where do you find something like a Dragon? Where do you find information about a 1907 Dragon like we're sitting in? Where would you find it?
Here.
Here. Ah, okay.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, you find little bits and pieces, and this museum's been here for, well, next year's going to be our 50th year.
Right.
You know, little bits and pieces of information on these makes has been accumulated over the years, so that we do have something of a little miniature library on most of the makes that we have here too. And you know, Dragon, I don't know if there are any other Dragons.
I've never heard of them.
We don't know.
I've seen about them. And Dragon was, there was a little bit of history with this car too, is there was a test driver back in, I guess, 1907 named Joe Tracy, who was a race driver, but after he was done racing, he figured, I'm gonna see if I can improve the automobile. And one of the things, he tried running a Dragon on like an alcohol-based fuel in 1907. And both with the Dragon and a couple other makes also. So, you know, there are some stuff. And I have to tell our viewers where I found out about that stuff is you go online. The internet's a great source, and I'm sure you've heard you can't believe everything you read on the internet. But if you go, here's my little inside scoop of the day here. If you go to Google Books and you type in something in their search thing that would be pretty unique, like 1907 Dragon, you're going to come up with magazine articles from 1907 car magazines. And I figure you can't get more authentic than that. And not only just the article, but the whole magazine, it's in advertisements, all the articles, everything. And really great reading. Yeah. I'm always reading things and saying, hey, Kendra, look at this, look at this. And she probably doesn't like it, but.
I love it.
Okay.
I love your tidbits. They're
tidbits.
Great. They're great because, I mean, and we find so many connections between this company and that company and this one.
And to get back with the Dragon, now we recently had this Dragon at a show. It was the Radner's
Radner Hunt.
Radner Hunt. Okay,
yep.
It was a concourse, kind of high-end types of stuff. Great show. But in preparing for it, we got this car running, and we had some volunteers come and get this car running. And I don't know if it's been run in the last 12 years before a few weeks ago. And so if you needed some really technical information, we could probably line you up with a volunteer who got the engine running, plus some of the other things. I'm sure they check for the brakes and so on and so forth. And, you know, we have tech guys here too, so.
Yeah, and you're talking about Radner, you know, I think we've started to do this more in the past couple years, is sort of take the museum outside the walls here and go to other places. This went to Radner, which is down in the Malvern area, if any of you are familiar with Radner Hunt. Just the week after this show, we took one of our electric cars to the Marshall Steam Museum in Delaware. And this coming weekend, now we're filming this on at the end of September. The first weekend in October, we're supposed to be taking our auto car truck to a show up at the Berks Heritage Center by the Reading Airport. So we're really trying to kind of take the museum on wheels, really, and just, you know, expand it and hopefully find people that haven't been here, intrigue them enough to come and see what else we have, and also give people an opportunity to hear and see some of these cars run, which is a neat thing.
And I just thought of something, and I am sure we have requests to bring vehicles out to different shows. And there's probably more requests than we have time for, or to have people take the vehicles, because we have to put it in a trailer, take it there, and have either museum volunteers or workers with the vehicle at all times. So we could probably take more vehicles out to more shows if we had more volunteers, right?
It's quite possible.
How's that for a segue?
Yeah, it's a
into
perfect
fun?
segue. It takes a lot of time to get these things in running condition, and I don't know what else term to use, but sometimes these cars need to be babysat. Is that a good, you know, they
Yes.
go to these shows when we don't want to just leave them sitting on a field for 8 hours, because they're really, you know, valuable to telling our story, and, you know, some of them are one of a kind. So we do need some help, you know, sitting with the vehicle, promoting the museum, and just getting the word out. So yes, we're always looking for volunteers if you're interested in working on cars, if you're interested in, you know, whether that's the mechanical side or detailing them, cleaning them up. A lot of work goes into that.
A lot of brass on this one that got cleaned
Oh,
up,
yeah.
a lot.
Dan and I could tell horror stories about brass cleaning.
So
No, not to distract anyone from wanting to come in and and clean brass. But there's a lot of work that goes into that. And of course, special events held here. We saw us sitting at the tables when we first started this program. We're going to have volunteers in here helping with that tomorrow too, clean up and food serving and all that good stuff. Tour guides. Dan is an excellent tour guide. We need more Dans to give tours. So, you know, there's always things to do here, and we're always looking for volunteers. So.
And to get back to this show that this vehicle was at in Radnor, I was with it. There was 4 others from the museum also there. But I spent a lot of time just standing around the car answering questions. And you think of a high-end car show, and those people know their vehicles, but so many people came up, they never heard of a Dragon. I don't think any, you know, it's not too well known. But I had to answer a lot of questions, and it's great. I enjoy it because I've done a lot of research on vehicles such as this.
Yeah. So let's see. That's our Dragon. What else shall we find? Should we go find something else to look at?
Let's go look for something else.
All right.
We're done.
Okay, Dan. Now you said let's talk about the SGV. Why are we here at the SGV?
We're SGV. We talked about, I believe right at the beginning of the show, how vehicles way in the beginning, like 100 years ago, 120 years ago, they were just developing and they didn't know which way to go. And a lot of cars borrowed from horse-drawn stuff, like carriages and stuff. Well, shock absorbers. Now, the old carriages just had springs for shock absorbers, or just springs. They didn't have shock absorbers. This car has shock absorbers. That's what these 2 cylinders are right here in the front. This is a 1912 SGV, and this is probably a higher end car as far as expense. And these shock absorbers were made by Westinghouse. It has them on all 4 corners. Obviously, we're just looking at the front here. And the springs, which I'm not sure you can see from there, but the springs are semi-elliptical, so they go from the back to right here in the front, and they're curved like you would picture leaf springs. But the front end of the leaf spring is mounted inside of this cylinder here. Inside the cylinder is the shock absorber, and there's a piston that rides up and down. Now, the cool thing about this, is it's adjustable. It has, right under this, I guess this is a nickel-plated device here. You open it up, and there's an actual air fitting there that you just hook an air pump up, and you can pressurize these with more or less to give you a smoother or rougher ride. So those of you who thought shock absorbers were a new thing, adjustable shock absorbers, here we have one 1912. And this is a pretty cool car too. This is a three-seater. You can see it has 2 seats for the driver and the passenger. There's another one in the back, and that back one could be kind of rough, so you might want to have shock absorbers on it. So
Yeah, we rode in this car, if you recall.
well, yeah, not at any speed.
No, but I know we went over the railroad tracks there
Mm-hmm.
in Pottstown, and I was in that back little tiny seat. And
Yes.
I think I bounced higher than the actual seat. There, yeah. So
That's why it has handles on the side.
exactly. That's why there's handles to hold on
So-
for dear life. Now, I mean, is this the height of technology at this time, do you think?
I would say yes,
Yeah.
because again, I've seen these Westinghouse shock absorbers on a few other cars at different shows, and they're all expensive cars. So you think the expensive cars would have the front edge, the cutting edge of technology there.
Yeah, I asked because this is or was a very expensive car for its time.
Correct.
I don't remember the sales price, but I know when I did the little, inflation calculator, when you type in the value, the price and the year, and it tells you what it is in today's dollars. And I think this came out to be 80,000 in today's money.
This car,
if you were
yeah.
to go to a dealer and buy it. So
Wow.
this was really a very expensive car. So I always wondered, is this? You would think it would be something that the expensive autos would have.
I got to tell our viewers a little story here. She said about riding around in this in Pottstown. We had this car being worked on, and when it was done, the guy who was working on it gave Kendra and I a ride because we were polishing the brass on this. And we're going down the main street in Pottstown, and it was like November. It was pretty chilly out. As you can see, there's no top on this. It's cold. And we stopped at a traffic light, and it's a loud car. No seat belts. But anyway, I told the driver, I said, try to be inconspicuous because there was 2 policemen standing on the sidewalk. So
I think they waved.
I think they noticed us, bright red car, 100 years old. So,
Loud.
yeah, so. Okay, anyway, so there it is. I wanted to show you these shock absorbers, these, again, air adjustable shock absorbers.
Dan, I'm having deja vu.
Again,
Aren't we? Again. Isn't this the Dragon?
this is the Dragon.
We're back at the Dragon.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Again, 1907. I wanted to point out the shock absorbers on this. Cars back then didn't have the greatest ride. They weren't smooth or anything. This has a semi-elliptical spring going from the front here to the back, just like a leaf spring. Here's your shock absorber back here. Now, the neat thing about this, it's adjustable. Adjustable shock absorbers, 1907. And the way you would do it is back here where this star is, it's like a bolt head also, and you would tighten it and loosen it. There's numbers on this, this round part here, so you can keep track of where you adjusted it last time. In between this part and this part is like a rubber disc. And then there's another one here. There's 2 rubber discs, and it's basically a friction thing. So as you're bouncing up and down and the axle's moving up and down against, in relation to the frame, this whole thing dampens the shock, or absorbs the shock. That's why they call it a shock absorber.
Hey, look at that.
But it's really interesting because I've heard about adjustable shock absorbers like in race cars and stuff. I come to the museum, I look at this 1907 Dragon, and we got one here. And it's all mechanical, nothing fancy about it. These were quite popular back in this era. I've seen a lot of vehicles with these. Now, I cannot tell you if a Dragon came with them or not. Okay, there's no other Dragons out there to compare it to. So there it is. That's an adjustable shock absorber, 1907 style.
And that's Trifalt Hartford. I don't know if I'm
Okay.
saying that correctly.
I think you are.
I know that
You got the Hartford down part.
that part I can do.
Yeah.
I remember when I was just researching this car in general, and I looked those up because you know they had their name on them,
Yep.
and so it's easy, it's something easy to look up. And I saw ads for just the shock absorbers, so it seems like you could at least, you know, if they didn't come with it, you know, you could get an aftermarket edition.
Right.
And I remember the ad copy for it said something to the effect of it makes your car ride like a rocking chair,
Okay.
which I thought was maybe not the best thing to compare to, but I guess it's better than nothing on those horrible, horrible roads of 1907. But
Right.
that will always stick with me. It's like a rocking chair,
Well, there you go.
so they said.
Yeah. They probably corduroy roads too,
Yeah.
with the real
That's right.
bumps and all
Exactly.
that stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right, so now we're at one of the quintessential cars, I think, in American history, the Model T.
Right.
What are you going to tell us about this Model T?
Again, shock absorbers. The Model Ts were famous for rough rides. In fact, they were famous for falling apart, I guess. And they had a spring system on it that were transverse spring, and it went from side to side over top the axle. You can see a little bit right here where my finger is. The shock absorber on this car, again, aftermarket, is just pretty much basically this curved piece here and this spring here. And it repeats itself on the other side. This car has them on the back also. And that, again, would just control the shock a little bit. Also, on Model T Fords, you could get all sorts of shock absorbers. You got one, it was called a Hassler, which was basically a spring that they would stick in here. KW is another brand. It looks like a little air cylinder that sticks up there. All sorts of things. Now, I have to say, with the Model T Fords, there is so much aftermarket stuff. You could have a whole hobby on nothing except aftermarket stuff for Model Ts. I just mentioned some of the shock absorbers for it, but you could get extra headlights, you could get self-starters, you get other radiators, anything you talk or you see on a car you could get for these things.
And I know you, if any of you, watched Wheels Along the Road, Dan talks a lot about aftermarket stuff. And he told me before we started to talk about this car that he could do a whole show on just this car.
Right.
Or Model T aftermarket items. So we're going to hold you that, Dan. You're
Oh,
going to have to do
great.
that in the future
A whole
sometime.
show.
That's right.
1
I'm going
hour.
to take off that month. You're just gonna
Okay.
do you.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, and I know you showed me a small fraction of the stuff that you've accumulated, the ads and everything. I think it just speaks to the Model T's prevalence.
Right.
I mean, this was.
And being they were built as a cheap car, they kind of were, I wouldn't say expected to fall apart, but they did. And I just noticed another thing while we're talking. If you look at this headlight here, it looks kind of purplish, okay? There's a certain material in the glass that over time it would change that color. You look in these old magazines, again, googlebooks.com, you can see all these old advertisements, on lenses for your lights. And one company, the Acme Lens Company, I made that one up, would say, well, ours is the best because you see the way the glass is curved and molded and such, and the rays go this way and that way, and they won't glare somebody else's eyes. And then the other company, which is, I don't know, ABC
Smith, yeah.
company, they'll have something else, and they say, well, there's little tiny prisms in there, and that'll be great because you can see if there's deer on the road. And everybody had a gimmick, sort of. And again, there was no proven way to do it. Everything was kind of being invented. In fact, we have cars here, this is kind of getting away from the Model T. We have cars here that have tiller steering with the Dornier, just a stick in the center, it's left or right turn. And somebody asked me, if you put the tiller or the stick to the left, does it mean it turns left? Well, I said, of course. They reminded me that back in the old days, when they first started working on these cars, that they were experimenting. And if you put it to the left, it means your wheels might turn to the right. and it's just they're kind of in line that way, and you know, it's all sorts of stuff, but
Well, I think it's that age of, experimentation that we were talking about.
Absolutely.
There weren't rules, and there wasn't a standard that everyone was used to, so you sort of had the freedom to just
right.
do what you wanted,
Yep.
do what you could, whatever your imagination could let you and your skill.
I'm going to give the viewers a little inside thing that I found out with this car. I was polishing the brass a few years ago, and it really needed it. It looked like brown paint. It was so bad. And I'm doing this, and if you look on the driver's side there's a little mirror on the windshield post, and there's a little brass rim on it. And I was thinking, well, it might be easier if I just undid that and take it apart and just have that brass rim in the hand. It's easier to clean that way. Well, as I took that off, the glass from the front of the mirror kind of flopped down, and I caught it, and there was a card. There was like cardstock cut out the same shape as that mirror to hold it from rattling. And again, how these cars rattled and shook and fell apart. Well, the interesting thing is that card was cut out from a Reading Public School District report card. So I figured there was some teacher owned this car way back then and was tired of that mirror rattling and put that in there. It was not filled out, it was just a blank card, but the date on it was from the teens. And
I was going to
just thought
say,
that
were
was
they bad
interesting.
grades? It was the
No.
parent didn't want to look at it anymore?
Nope.
No.
Nope. It was,
Blank.
so that was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, well, and it speaks to something else. That's a good point. About a lot of the stuff here, you were talking about the building maybe not always being pristine. Some of the vehicles here are not pristine either. And, a lot of them worked for a living, I say, the trucks and stuff. They weren't there for people to, take the Sunday morning, afternoon drives in. They were there to work. And a lot of our pieces have indications that they were used and
Right.
modified. That's maybe not the best word. Things were tweaked on them to suit the driver's needs.
Yep.
And we tried, like the report card, and we tried to keep as much of that as we can, because it does tell a story about the car. It tells a story about the people that owned it.
Right.
So you'll see that a lot here.
It's interesting, we're talking about that, and also the shock absorbers too, where aftermarket thing. I've talked to Model T Club members and asked about the aftermarket stuff, and they says, well, we're not really interested in that. And you go to a show and they'll have 10, 20 Model Ts all lined up, and you look and there's very little aftermarket stuff. They don't want to put them on their car. And now I'm probably going to get callers saying, oh, well, I got this on my car. But there are some out there, but you look at these books and there's whole catalogs full of accessories for Model Ts, and it's interesting. And also racing. I'm
Yeah.
a big race guy. And Model Ts were the basis of racing back starting in the teens. And your local fairgrounds dirt track, they race these things. That's before Bonneville and everything.
Wow.
In fact, one of the biggest names for Model T racing engines, little trivia for you, on the East Coast was a company down in Philadelphia. So,
there you go.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit about our Model T. Like I said, we'll talk more about it.
Yep.
too.
Okay.
What's funny is in the vehicle museum, probably the most popular thing in here is not a vehicle. It would probably be this diner.
The Steiner.
Are you surprised by that?
No, I'm not. This is great. We have people walk in here and where's the diner? Where's the diner? They walk through the door and you can see them looking for it. So.
This is, and hopefully some people at home know about this place. This is Fagley's Reading Diner. This used to be in Fagley's Family Restaurant, which was on Route 422 outside of Exeter.
Exeter.
Yep. And it eventually made its way here. And it really is probably, it is really neat. I mean, I can't deny it.
It is.
The architecture is really cool. It's got that great 30s feel about it. It was built in 1938, and it's been kept in really amazing condition considering how hard it was used for decades. You know, so many visitors come in. We ate there every week, and you hear that all the time. I mean, this place was hopping when it was open, and it's still in great shape.
Yep. When it came in here, I was here the day they brought it in the building. Not the whole day. I got tired of watching. But anyway, I thought it was in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But then we had people come in and restore it, the exterior, the interior, and also clean it. And you figure like this woodwork here had 70 years of grease and smoke on it. And yeah, so it was amazing.
We had so many great volunteers helping with this, and you know, it was hard work, but they all say how much they enjoyed it and how much they learned, and you know, they found little details about this diner that, you know, I don't even know about, and you know, I see it every day, but
Right.
you know, they really got an up close and personal look with it, and 70 years worth of grease and grime.
Oh yeah, so.
But you know, in most of it, I mean, really, most of it inside here is original. We replaced a couple things. This nice counter is original. The floor tiles, all the woodwork, the stainless steel backsplash. That's all from 1938.
Yep. We replaced the lighting because there was fluorescent lighting down the center of this.
Yeah, it
that
was horrible.
Yeah, it looked pretty bad. And so we have a lot nicer lighting here. The exterior, we put new siding on it. There was a guy here, and he spent 2 Saturdays lettering the outside by hand. And I just thought that was interesting. You know, this day of decals, and he's there painting the lettering on the outside. Put a new covering on the roof, and a lot of stuff, a lot of little stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and it really paid off. I mean, maybe the biggest change inside this area, you know, to kind of tell you a little bit about what we went through, is the ceiling. You know, that ceiling is replaced. That's not the original. And that's because the old ceiling, well, first of all, it was all ripped up from having those fluorescents in here.
Right.
So that wasn't right. But the ceiling itself was just, literally, it was disintegrating when you would touch it, because it was made of like this fiberboard
Right.
type material. It didn't make it. So, I mean, that's replaced, but it's as close as we were hoping to get with what it would have looked like. But really, I mean, it's amazing how good a shape that this stayed in.
And since it's in good shape, we came up with an event a couple years ago, year and a half, and why don't you tell?
Yeah, oh gosh, and we hope you'll all join us, but I will warn you, you need to get here early, because we decided, you know, first of all, we went back and forth for a long time. Are we going to eat in the diner? Are we not going to eat in the diner? You know, what's going to be the deal? Because you know people are going to ask that. And
All the time.
you know, and we'll be very truthful with you. We're never going to cook in here again, for a couple reasons. Mainly, a lot of it has to do with health codes, you know,
Right.
and if we start following health codes, we're going to start destroying what makes this such
Right.
a neat little example, because it's
Right.
not big enough, and we can go on and on. So the other idea, you know, we can serve food in here. As long as it's not cooked in here, we can serve it in here. So our idea was, you know, Fagley's, who it seems was very well known for their pies. Let's have pie and coffee in the diner. That's easy, right? So I think coming up is going to be our third one, I believe. And we decided to open up the diner for a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pay regular museum admission,
Right.
which I must say is quite affordable.
Right.
We have a very affordable admission rate of $6 for adults, $5 senior citizens, $4 students. So it's really affordable to get in here. And pay your admission rate, you can come sit in the diner, and for a quarter, you can get a slice of homemade pie. For a nickel, you can have a cup of coffee to go with it, and you can sit right here at the counter or in one of the booths and have pie and coffee. And
the date on that is November 8th,
That's
which
the
is
next one.
it's my sister's birthday.
it's the day after my birthday.
So my sister Beth, if you're watching this, I want to see your face in the place. So,
Beth, if you come, you and I will have a piece of cake together.
yeah, and talk about me. So,
But yeah, it's been extremely successful. I don't think we foresaw how many people would be interested in that.
right.
And
Right.
but so many of those people, you have people who have never been here before, and it was just a neat thing, and it is a neat thing to do, a neat thing to do with the family. We had so many people who visited here when this was an open restaurant, and came for
Yep.
some of the nostalgia and the memories, really. And
I remember when we first opened it, I think it was like a week after we had our grand opening of this. I was here on a Saturday just hanging out, and there was an older couple in here, and I walked in to talk to them, and they said, oh, they used to eat in here every week, and I asked them what table they sit at and stuff. Well, there was this young lady outside of the diner taking a lot of pictures, just a lot. And then finally she came inside and she introduced herself, and she was a reporter for the paper up in Reading. And she says, yeah, we want to do a little thing about that. And so she got some quotes from these people and and I was telling you, we brought it in, we replaced this and this and this. And the only part that she quoted me in, was about when we turned the tabletops over, there were 70 years of dried bubble gum on the bottom. That was my quote in the newspaper, and I thought that was funny. But it was interesting, just the things you don't think about, and you stumble on these interesting little
it was.
quirky
I remember
things.
when we turned over the first tip. Yeah, it was like I never thought about that, but yeah,
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah.
I remember that from
gross.
school,
Yeah.
sticking under the desk. It was the
Oh,
same
you were the
thing
one.
here.
Okay. So anyway, I think we had our first pie and coffee thing was the grand opening of our gas station, which we will look at in a couple minutes.
Yeah,
So,
it's right next door.
yep. So let's go over there.
All right.
And this is our gas station. We just mentioned about it while we were standing in the diner. This gas station, when we first had its opening about a year and a half ago, no, actually it was a year ago.
It was about a year.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. It was around a year ago, and that's what started this whole pie and coffee thing at the diner. But this is our gas station, and again, it's a unique thing. You go other museums, they don't have a gas station. Some of them have homemade ones, but this is a genuine 1921 building. This is a prefab metal building that they built, and Joe, the gas station owner, would say, I want a building, and he could go buy this thing.
Yeah, now this one came to us from, it was sitting in Charlottesville, but it operated in Strausstown, which is just barely in Berks County,
Right.
but it's in Berks County. And in the 50s, at least, it was a Sunoco station. So we tried to sort of recreate the 50s photographs that we have of it in what we see here. And it came as well with the gas pumps, which our good friend Mikey Nessa at Wheels in Motion, which I'm sure some of you recognize. He was on Wheels quite a bit, and he has his own PC TV show, Car Stories. He did the gas pump restoration for us and did a great job. And you talked about the diner and how there was a man here who was hand lettering the exterior of the diner. He also hand lettered the gas pumps for us as well.
Right.
So, and as well as the Sunoco Oil Company logo over top of the door. So.
And again, this gas station came to us, it was in fairly good shape. And we repainted it, what we believe is the right Sunoco colors and the way it would be. There was some minor rust issues, which is interesting. It's a galvanized steel on it, but where there wasn't galvanized, that's where it was rusting, and we fixed that. We did some work into the inside here, and I think it's this great thing, and I like it.
It's neat to have the two buildings next to each other, because the advent of the car did so much more than just let everyone have a car to drive around. It created these other businesses. Obviously, you need to refuel your car.
Right.
So you need a gas station.
Right.
Obviously, you know, you're going to expect food further from home and at strange hours of the day, maybe.
Right.
So you need things like diners. So
Right.
it's really neat to have these two next to each other and show how, you know, the car affected that part of the roadside landscape, really.
And it's interesting because you look at today, you're going down the interstate somewhere and you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's an exit off the interstate. And what is there? There's a place to eat, there's a place to get fuel, there's a place to stay, and a lot of them are combined. And, you know, that's stayed ever since, I guess, the cars started traveling around a lot.
Does this
So-
mean we need to put a hotel in here next?
Yes, be good right over there.
Just squeeze it in the corner?
Yeah. We talked about it, so.
So yeah, just just another way to make this museum, I think, a little more unique. Too.
And unique it is, right?
Well, now this is the total opposite end of the spectrum for where we just were. You know, sometimes I think in our museum, when you have these huge things like a car, a diner, you know, this little stuff gets lost. And, you
Right.
know, we were just talking about the aftermarket and everything. We do have smaller items here on display, memorabilia, taillights, aftermarket items.
Right.
The tire ashtrays down there they're on loan to us, but they're, you know, this kind of advertising gimmick from back in the day. So, you know, we have all different things.
So,
you know.
so if you come to the museum, it'd take you a while to go around looking at all the cars, reading stuff, but you come back and you look at all this little stuff. I like this little stuff. When they set this up, I was over here on a Saturday morning. I'm reading all these advertisements in the back, so it helps my knowledge, I guess. So, okay, you've seen our whole museum. We've given you explanations about things, telling you what's here, what a great time you can have here, getting educated, figure out why the museum's here. I think that's pretty much what we covered in the past hour. So we're glad that you've watched, and
But we left out so many other cars
We
here.
did.
There's plenty more here, we promise. And, you know, I think next month we hope you join us again and we'll show you more. We'll do something different. And this was kind of our introductory episode, I guess.
yes.
Yeah.
And one last thing is, Kendra just mentioned about a special display we're going to have. This vehicle right behind us that we're sort of hiding from you is one of the vehicles in that. So you have to come and see the whole thing. So
And it will take
be
you a
little
while
tease.
to see the whole
Yeah,
thing.
it's pretty interesting vehicle, and I understand one of the other vehicles we get is even more interesting than this.
Yeah, it's gonna be neat. Again, it's called One Hit Wonders of the Road, and it will be opening about mid-October, and it will go to the end of November. So if you come at Diner Day, it will be here in the lobby for you
Yes.
to look at, and
That's November 8th,
and November 8th.
my sister's birthday.
That's right. So come on, Beth, come look at the cars and eat some pie. And yeah, so you know, I don't know what we have in store yet for next month, but we'll probably maybe we'll go back to a more normal format. You know, we wanted to give you sort of an intro of what the museum is and why it's here. And, you know, we really only scratched the surface. Even just standing here in this spot, I am seeing all these cars we didn't even look at tonight and talk about.
Right.
So there's lots more to do and see.
And if you see me at Hershey, stop by and say hi.